Have you ever noticed that in moments of chaos, the person who speaks the least often holds the most power? Think about that. In a heated meeting, in a crisis, even in an argument, the one who doesn't rush to speak, the one who listens, that's usually the person everyone ends up turning to. Because silence isn't weakness. Patience isn't passivity. They're signals of strength. Silence has long been misunderstood as a sign of weakness or uncertainty. In a world that rewards those who speak quickly, post often, and react instantly, we've come to equate volume with confidence and speed with intelligence. Yet, when we look at moments of true influence, the most powerful people are often the ones who choose silence over noise. They do not rush to fill the air with words, they wait, they observe, and they act with intention. Silence in its truest form is not an absence of thought, it's the presence of strength. When we remain silent, especially in situations charged with emotion or chaos, we send a message that we are not controlled by impulse. There's a quiet authority in someone who can stay calm while others scramble to speak. It's the kind of presence that makes people lean in, that captures attention without demanding it. Think of a great leader sitting in a room full of debates and disagreements. While others raise their voices to be heard, this leader listens, they watch, they consider, and when they finally do speak, every word carries weight, because it's not just noise, it's meaning. Silence gives words their value, just as space gives shape to sound. In conversations, silence can be the most persuasive form of communication. When someone finishes talking and you stay quiet for a moment, that pause often compels them to reveal more. They fill the silence, and in doing so, you learn more than you ever could by interrupting. Great negotiators and interviewers know this instinctively. The power of silence lies in its ability to draw out truth. It shifts the balance of control. The one who is comfortable in silence is rarely the one who loses composure. Silence also gives us time to listen, not just to others, but to ourselves. In the rush to respond, we often miss what's really happening beneath the surface. We react to words instead of understanding intent, but when we choose stillness, we create a small space between what happens and how we respond. In that space, wisdom lives. We begin to hear the unspoken, the tension in a tone, the hesitation behind a sentence, the emotion beneath the words. Listening deeply requires discipline. Silence is its foundation. Culturally, we're taught to equate speaking up with confidence and staying quiet with weakness. But real confidence doesn't need to shout. Real confidence can sit in a room, say nothing, and still be felt. That kind of strength is not born from ego, but from self-assurance. It comes from knowing that your value isn't measured by how often you speak, but by the impact of what you say when you finally do. Silence reflects maturity, the ability to wait for the right moment, to choose your words wisely, and to let others feel heard before you contribute. In leadership, this kind of silence transforms relationships. When a leader listens more than they speak, they create an environment of trust. People feel safe sharing ideas because they know their voices matter. Teams perform better because they aren't afraid of being interrupted or dismissed. Silence gives room for others to grow. It empowers instead of dominating. And paradoxically, that's where influence is built, not through constant talking, but through quiet understanding. There is a kind of silent power that doesn't need validation. It doesn't crave attention, and it doesn't demand to be seen. It's steady, grounded, and unshakable. In moments of crisis, this calm presence becomes a beacon for others. When the world is loud and uncertain, people look for those who are still, because stillness feels like safety. So, silence is not weakness. It's the highest form of strength. It's restraint in the face of impulse, clarity in the midst of confusion, and composure when everything else feels unstable. It is the invisible force that commands respect without words, that influences without control, and that leads without noise. To be silent is to be powerful, not because you have nothing to say, but because you have learned the value of waiting until it truly matters. Clarity is something we all crave, yet few of us give ourselves the space to find it. We live in a time where movement is constant and noise is inescapable. Notifications, conversations, news, deadlines, the endless hum of activity that keeps our minds occupied but rarely fulfilled. In such a world, stillness becomes almost rebellious. It's an act of resistance against distraction and a deliberate choice to focus. Stillness creates clarity because it allows us to step back from the noise, to quiet the external world long enough to hear what's really going on inside. When we are constantly rushing, our thoughts become tangled. Decisions feel forced, and our emotions drive our reactions before we even understand them. We mistake movement for progress, but often we're just running in circles. True clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from pausing long enough to see things as they are. Stillness gives us that pause. It's in the moments of silence when we stop trying to control every outcome that our perspective begins to shift. The fog starts to lift, and what once felt confusing starts to make sense. Clarity is not born out of chaos, it emerges from calm. When we allow stillness into our lives, even briefly, we create mental space for reflection. That space is where understanding grows. Consider how a muddy pond clears when left undisturbed. The water settles, the dirt drifts down, and what was once murky becomes transparent. The mind works the same way. If we keep stirring it with constant activity, we never give our thoughts a chance to settle. But when we sit still, when we breathe, when we allow silence to take over for a moment, what truly matters begins to rise to the surface. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing something very intentional, listening, observing, becoming aware. It's in stillness that we notice patterns. The ones in our thoughts, our behaviors, our relationships. We begin to see where our energy goes and whether it's aligned with what we value most. Without stillness, we remain blind to these patterns, repeating the same mistakes and wondering why we feel stuck. But when we slow down, we gain the power to choose differently. Clarity isn't just about seeing, it's about seeing clearly enough to act with purpose. Many of the greatest ideas and breakthroughs in history were born out of stillness. Writers, scientists, artists, and leaders often describe moments of clarity that arrived not during frantic work, but in quiet moments while walking alone, watching the sunrise, or sitting in silence. Those are the moments when the mind, no longer clouded by constant stimulation, begins to connect ideas in new ways. Creativity and clarity thrive in the same conditions: calm, focus, and space. In our personal lives, stillness helps us reconnect with ourselves. When we pause, we start to recognize what we truly feel instead of what we're supposed to feel. We learn to distinguish between noise and intuition, between what the world expects and what our heart quietly tells us. That kind of clarity is not found in motion, it's discovered in stillness. It helps us realign with our purpose, reminding us of what matters most when everything else demands attention. The truth is, clarity is rarely loud. It doesn't shout its way into our lives. It whispers. It waits for us to be quiet enough to listen. But we have to choose to make room for it, to stop chasing the next thing and simply be. When we do, we begin to notice that answers we've been searching for were always there, hidden beneath layers of noise and distraction. Stillness doesn't create something new, it reveals what was already there all along. So when life feels overwhelming, when decisions seem impossible and your mind feels cluttered, the best thing you can do is stop, be still. Take a breath. In the quiet that follows, clarity begins to form, not because you forced it, but because you finally gave it space to arrive. Listening is one of the most underrated yet powerful forms of communication. Most people hear, but few truly listen. We often treat conversations as opportunities to respond rather than to understand. Yet, the greatest leaders and the most effective communicators share one fundamental trait. They listen more than they speak. Listening is not simply about staying quiet until it's your turn to talk. It's about being fully present, open, and curious about what another person is saying. When we listen deeply, we give others the gift of feeling seen and valued, and that is the foundation of genuine connection and leadership. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, the rarest thing we can offer is our attention. Most people are not really looking for advice or immediate solutions. They want to feel understood. When someone listens to us without interruption or judgment, something profound happens. We begin to open up. Our defenses lower, and we start speaking from a place of honesty rather than performance. That's when real conversations begin. A leader who listens creates this kind of environment, a space where people feel safe to share ideas, admit mistakes, and express concerns without fear. Trust grows naturally from that kind of presence. Listening is a discipline, not a passive act. It requires patience, empathy, and focus. It means resisting the urge to interrupt or to mentally prepare your response while the other person is talking. True listening is about seeking to understand, not to win. When a leader listens deeply, they don't just hear the words being spoken. They listen for the emotion behind them, the motivations that drive them, and the silence that follows them. Every pause, every hesitation, every tone carries meaning. To listen well is to notice all of it. One of the biggest misconceptions about leadership is that it's about having all the answers. In reality, great leaders don't pretend to know everything. They're curious enough to learn from those around them. Listening is how they do that. When you listen, you show humility. You acknowledge that other people's experiences, perspectives, and insights are valuable. That humility earns respect far more than authority ever could. It transforms a leader from someone who commands obedience into someone who inspires loyalty. Listening also sharpens judgment. When we take time to absorb different viewpoints before making a decision, we gain a clearer picture of the situation. Rush leaders who make decisions without listening often overlook critical details or alienate their teams. Those who listen gather not just information, but understanding. They can see how choices will affect people, anticipate reactions, and build solutions that serve everyone more effectively. In this way, listening is not just a soft skill, it's a strategic one. There's also a psychological dimension to listening. When someone feels truly heard, they are more likely to engage, contribute, and commit to a shared vision. People don't follow leaders because they shout the loudest. They follow those who make them feel that their voice matters. Listening turns followers into partners. It makes people feel included in the process rather than dictated to. Over time, this creates a culture of openness and collaboration where ideas flow freely and innovation thrives. Listening at its core is an act of respect. It tells others you matter. Your thoughts matter. Your experience matters. And that simple recognition has a profound effect on human relationships. Whether in leadership, friendship, or family, the moments that strengthen bonds are often not the ones where we speak, but where we listen. When we slow down and give someone our full attention, we're not just hearing them, we're telling them that they belong. And in a world where so many voices go unheard, that kind of listening is powerful. It transforms conversations into connections, interactions into understanding, and ordinary people into extraordinary leaders. True listening doesn't make you quieter, it makes you wiser, and wisdom, not volume, is what defines great leadership. Patience is one of the most overlooked strengths in a world that glorifies speed. We have been conditioned to believe that faster is always better, that success belongs to those who act quickly, decide instantly, and achieve immediately. But real growth, the kind that lasts, doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly, quietly, beneath the surface, where no one is watching. Patience is not idleness, it is preparation. It's the art of trusting the process even when there are no visible results. And it's a sign of faith in the unseen work that leads to meaningful progress. When we plant a seed, we don't stand over it and demand that it grow. We water it, give it sunlight, and wait. We trust that something is happening beneath the soil, even though we can't see it. The same principle applies to our lives, our goals, and our growth. Patience teaches us to honor the unseen stages of development, the moments of quiet effort, uncertainty, and small, unrecognized victories that eventually lead to transformation. Those who understand patience know that every delay has a purpose. Every pause is an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more prepared for what's coming next. The problem is that modern life doesn't reward patience. We live in an age of instant gratification. We want quick results, quick recognition, quick answers. We measure success by how fast we get there rather than how deeply we grow along the way. But the truth is, anything built too quickly often collapses just as fast. Whether it's a career, a relationship, or a dream, what is rushed tends to lack roots. Patience gives us those roots. It grounds us so that when challenges come, we can withstand them. Without patience, we may reach our goals, but we'll arrive exhausted, anxious, and unfulfilled. Patience is not about waiting for things to happen. It's about becoming the kind of person who can handle them when they do. It's a quiet form of strength that teaches discipline, humility, and trust. When we are patient, we learn to surrender control, not in a passive way, but in a wise way. We stop trying to force outcomes and instead focus on what we can do right now. That shift from control to trust changes everything. It gives us peace in uncertainty and resilience in delay. It reminds us that timing matters, and that rushing something before it's ready can destroy its potential. There's a saying that the strongest trees are the ones that take the longest to grow. Their roots dig deep, anchoring them through storms and seasons. People are no different. The time we spend developing our skills, healing our hearts, or building our character is not wasted. It's necessary. Every waiting season has a lesson to teach us. Sometimes patience is what protects us from the consequences of getting what we want too soon. It gives us the maturity to appreciate what we're given and the wisdom to handle it well. Leaders, in particular, must learn the power of patience. Leading people means understanding that growth takes time. You can't rush trust, creativity, or change. They require nurturing and consistency. A leader who is patient sets the tone for their team. They show that progress matters more than speed, and that endurance matters more than instant success. Patience allows leaders to see beyond the immediate results and focus on the long-term vision. Patience also connects us to gratitude. When we slow down, we begin to notice the small steps forward that we might have otherwise ignored. We start to see progress in the process itself, not just in the outcome. This shift helps us stay motivated and balanced, even when the results take longer than expected. In the end, patience is not just about waiting. It's about who we become while we wait. It's about learning to trust that growth is happening. Even when it's invisible, it's about believing that the right things will unfold at the right time. And when they do, we will be ready, not because we rushed to the destination, but because we allowed ourselves to grow strong enough to reach it. We live in a time where speed is celebrated as the ultimate sign of success. The faster we respond, the more productive we seem, the quicker we achieve, the more accomplished we feel. Society rewards urgency, instant messages, fast results, quick decisions. But in our obsession with acceleration, we often mistake movement for progress. The truth is, the fast lane isn't always the smart lane. Moving quickly might get us somewhere sooner, but it doesn't guarantee that we'll end up where we truly want to be. Sometimes, slowing down is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of wisdom. When we move too fast, we stop seeing clearly. We rush through experiences, conversations, and decisions without giving them the attention they deserve. We react instead of reflecting, speak instead of listening, and do instead of understanding. In our haste, we miss the subtle signs that guide us toward better choices. The tone in someone's voice, the opportunity hidden in a challenge, the lesson behind a mistake. The faster we go, the narrower our perspective becomes. Slowing down, on the other hand, allows us to step back and see the bigger picture. It gives us clarity and direction, helping us make choices that align with our values rather than our impulses. In leadership, speed can be seductive. Making quick decisions can make us appear decisive and efficient. But if those decisions are made without reflection or empathy, they often lead to greater problems later. True leadership isn't about acting fast, it's about acting right. It requires patience, listening, and thoughtful judgment. A leader who moves too fast risks leaving their team behind. A leader who takes the time to understand the people, the situation, and the long-term impact creates sustainable success. The best leaders know that slowing down doesn't delay progress, it protects it. Life, too, follows this same rhythm. When we constantly rush, we disconnect from ourselves. We live in anticipation of the next task, the next goal, the next milestone, rarely appreciating where we are. This creates a cycle of constant striving and never arriving. The mind becomes restless and joy begins to fade. By slowing down, we rediscover presence. We start noticing small details that give life meaning. The warmth of sunlight, the rhythm of breath, the depth in a simple conversation. These are not distractions. They are reminders that life's richness is found in moments, not in speed. Many of the world's greatest thinkers, creators, and innovators understood the importance of slowing down. They valued contemplation as much as action. They took time to think deeply, to observe carefully, to let ideas mature before bringing them to life. Creativity thrives not in chaos, but in calm. When the mind is constantly racing, it can't see connections or imagine possibilities. But when it slows, it begins to wander, to dream, to create. The smartest work often comes from the quietest moments. Slowing down also gives us resilience. When we move at full speed all the time, we burn out. We deplete our energy, our focus, and our emotional balance. By taking things more slowly, we allow ourselves to rest, recover, and rebuild. This isn't laziness, it's sustainability. Just as an athlete needs recovery to perform at their best, we need moments of stillness to restore our mental and emotional strength. Slowing down ensures that we can keep going for the long run without losing ourselves in the process. Choosing the slower, smarter path takes courage in a world addicted to speed. It requires trusting that meaningful progress doesn't need to be rushed. It means valuing depth over urgency, intention over efficiency, and wisdom over reaction. The fast lane might get us to the finish line first, but the slow lane often gets us there whole. The goal is not just to move quickly, but to move wisely, to live with purpose, not pressure. When we slow down, we make space for clarity, creativity, and connection. And that's where true success begins, not in how fast we go, but in how deeply we grow. In a world that constantly measures worth by visibility and performance, presence has become a rare and powerful quality. We are taught to believe that success depends on how much we achieve, how often we speak, how noticeable we are. But real influence doesn't always come from being the loudest in the room or the most active on stage. It comes from presence. Presence is the quiet strength that draws people in, the sense of calm and authenticity that makes others feel safe, seen, and valued. Power, in its truest form, lies not in performance, but in presence. Presence means being fully engaged in the moment. It's the ability to give your undivided attention to whatever or whoever is in front of you. When someone has presence, you can feel it. They don't have to dominate the conversation or impress anyone with their words. Their stillness, their attentiveness, their sincerity, those qualities speak louder than anything they say. Presence is not about doing more, it's about being more aware, more connected, more intentional. In a world full of noise and distraction, being truly present is an act of leadership. So often people believe they need to perform to be respected. They prepare their words, polish their image, and fill every silence with speech because they fear being overlooked. But performance is exhausting because it depends on external validation. Presence, on the other hand, comes from inner confidence. It's rooted in authenticity. The quiet belief that you don't have to prove your worth because you already know it. When you stop trying to perform and start choosing to be present, everything changes. People listen more closely. They trust you more deeply. They respond not to your image, but to your energy. Presence has an emotional impact that performance can never replicate. When you're truly present with someone, they feel it immediately. They feel your focus, your care, your respect. They feel that you're not distracted by what's next or preoccupied with yourself. That kind of attention is rare and deeply human. It builds connection without words. In leadership, presence communicates stability. When everything around is uncertain, a leader who stays grounded, calm, and fully engaged becomes a source of reassurance. Their composure gives others permission to slow down, to breathe, and to think clearly. Presence, therefore, isn't just a personal quality. It's a gift you offer to those around you. Being present also means being comfortable with silence. People who lack presence often fill silence with unnecessary words or actions because they equate quiet with weakness. But those who understand presence know that silence can be powerful. It creates space for thought, emotion, and truth. It allows others to speak and be heard. It invites reflection. The person who can sit in silence without discomfort radiates confidence because they are not seeking control or approval. They are simply being. That stillness draws others in. It commands respect without demanding it. True presence requires self-awareness. It means knowing yourself well enough to stand firm in who you are without needing to impress or outshine others. This doesn't mean withdrawing from the world. It means engaging with it more deeply and consciously. Presence is not about doing nothing. It's about doing everything with intention. Whether you're speaking to a crowd or having a quiet conversation, it's about being right there, not somewhere else in your mind. The paradox of presence is that it achieves more by doing less. It doesn't chase attention, yet it captures it. It doesn't seek influence, yet it creates it. It doesn't try to lead, yet it inspires. Presence is the difference between noise and meaning, between motion and impact. People may forget what you say or do, but they never forget how you made them feel, and presence is what they feel most. In the end, performance fades, but presence endures. It's the invisible force that transforms moments into memories and leadership into legacy. To cultivate presence is to choose depth over display, authenticity over appearance, and connection over control. That's where real power lies, not in the performance of who we think we should be, but in the quiet confidence of who we already are.